I really truly believe that I'm capturing a timestamp because the evolution is changing.
Curious about contemporary art, how it gets made, and by whom? If so, then you are listening to the right podcast. Join me here every other Wednesday to learn about art from some of today's great painters, sculptors, and photographers. Welcome back to Beyond the Palette. I'm your host, Whitney Rosenson, owner of Art Dimensions in Los Angeles, and I am so happy to be talking today with Max Laroche, an exceptional photographer. Max and I have been working together for only about 6 months, so needless to say, I am super excited to get to know him better and for you all too as well. Hey, Max, welcome to Beyond the Palette.
Thanks, Whitney. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on here. And as you said, it's been a pleasure working together with you for the last 6 months.
Oh, well, thank you for chatting with me today and for welcoming everybody into your creative world. And let's dive in. Well, for those listeners who do not know who you are, and for me too, can you give us a snapshot of your journey to where you are today?
I'm born and raised in Haiti. Spent most of my life there through the coup d'etats and all of the issues that were there, and like seeing the beauty of the country. And then around high school, I was sent to the United States to go to military school, actually. From there, I started realizing the image problem that Haiti had. And that's kind of what started the photography journey. In high school, I took 2 classes. I think it was like introductory photography. It's like one of the extras that are in all American high schools. And I took that, and that really sparked a passion for me in terms of like, wow, this is something really cool. My photography teacher at the time was like, Max, you've really got an eye for this stuff. Maybe you want to consider pursuing this like more as a career. And at that time, when you come from Haiti, it's like basically like doctor, lawyer, engineer. Like it's really like your parents are very much involved in your education and the choices that you make. And so when you go and you're like, oh, I want to be a photographer, that's like you might as well just say you want to be a musician or you want to be, one of these things. And in Los Angeles, this is very much common, but when you're in Haiti, it's not very common. So I had a lot of people steer me in the other direction where I wanted to get into marketing, advertising, a lot of visual stuff. And people steered me away and they pushed me into business. So I went into business, studied business management. And then when I came out of that, the photography just started like pushing itself back into my life, because I would go around and I'd be in the States or traveling around and people would be like, I'm from Haiti, right? And then they would say, oh, you're from Tahiti? That's amazing. What an awesome place, the beaches. And I'm like, no, I'm from Haiti. And then you would see this process where people kind of like look for it in their mind, like the word association, right? So you associate Tahiti with these beautiful beaches and coconut trees, right? But then Haiti, you associate that with earthquake, poverty, the war. Like every time we show up on the news, it's nothing positive. You see the people's faces of being super excited for you, of like, oh, I'm meeting somebody from Tahiti, to like, oh, I'm feeling sorry for you because you're from Haiti. And it's like, no. Like, please don't feel sorry for me. It's the same thing. Like, I have the coconut trees, I've got the beaches. It's like, I live in the Caribbean.
It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, thank you. And that kind of started the push of like, well, here's social media, and Instagram was like brand new, Facebook, these things were like, and I was like, well, I have all these people that I've met throughout my life. Like, at least let me start showing these people that like are my friends. Like, I'll just start showing them like, hey, this is Haiti. This is the Haiti that I know and that I've been telling you about. And they started sharing it and they started growing it. And then it's just this thing that like grew, and it started growing so much that I was like, oh, here's this way for me to like get back into photography of something that I've always wanted to do. And then I started like teaching myself. Like, I would look at these amazing photographers, let's say the National Geographic guys, or like, some of these guys that are doing astrophotography, and again, social media being one of those ways to like show you this stuff that people are doing out there. And I was like, wow, okay, Google, YouTube, because it's not like I could go to school in Haiti for photography. So it would just be self-teaching myself of like, oh, I really like that kind of shot, that kind of work. Let me see who's doing it and how I can teach it to myself. What then started happening is I was investing into my gear, into the camera gear and et cetera, et cetera. And now this stuff starts getting really expensive. And you're like, okay, in cue the business mindset and like, all right, now what can I do to make this in a way that is profitable, that it's not just this like money pit that I'm throwing. And I was like, oh, well, there's so many different avenues of like, these pieces that I'm creating are works of art. There's not a lot of people that have a chance to go shoot this. Like three-quarters of the shots that I have, some of them I can say that I'm the only one that has that picture. Like, good luck going to get it.
So how long have you been shooting?
Professionally, probably since like 2013. And then first camera wise, like amateur wise, 2005, 2006. Like, yeah, I was doing film, a lot of film. I segued a little bit into camcorders, like home video type of stuff. And then from there, I just went really deep dive into photography. And I wanted to have the best. I wanted to have the highest quality. When I had a chance to go visit places and you walk into a place and you're like, oh, they're asking 10 grand for this. But when you walk up close to it, you put your face to the quality, to the image, and you're like, it's missing. That should not, for 10 grand,
It should be crisp.
it should be crisp. And that's what I invested into, is to make sure that my imagery was crisp.
So who are some of your greatest influences? You mentioned the National Geographic photographers. Is there one or two in specific?
There's a guy called Andy Mann who I think takes phenomenal shots. Paul Nicklin,
Oh, yeah, I know Paul's work.
beautiful work, right? I have another guy that I started following there. His name was Kane DeLacy, and I actually had a chance to meet him. And we've gone on some expeditions together, trying to find some sperm whales in Haiti. That was really cool. I have a couple influences in more closer to home in Haiti. Rafael Castra, who's a cousin of mine. And when I was like 10 or 11, she would come up north to go do photo adventures. And I was just learning how to drive. We're talking 11 years old. At 12, I had my license in Haiti, but at 11, I was already driving with with her. It would be fun. So she'd come and I could be her driver, and she could be sitting passenger taking her pictures however she wanted. And I would be learning and going on an adventure. That was one of the core founding for me of like what later on became the where you see why I'm so adventurous going out to go get pictures that, most people won't put in that effort and time.
Well, let's talk about your images a little bit. I want to mention to everybody who's listening that your photos embody everyday Haitian life for the most part. What do you hope to capture in these photos? Is there a spirit, or is there I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what do you hope to capture?
I want to embody the positive side of the Haitian culture. A lot of people associate Haiti with misery, with poverty, with like, and everything else that comes with that. And I don't think that's true. I think that the Haitian people are resilient, they're joyous inside. I think that we don't know how to give up. We just always have this element of hope inside of us that just keeps on going. You look at current events as we talk today. In 2004, when the kidnappings were horrible, and my friends were looking at me and they were like, Haiti cannot get any worse than it is right now. And Haiti's like, hold my beer. Let me show you how it can get worse. Unfortunately, today we find ourselves in a place where more and more that work that I'm doing is in essence of capturing that. And I know it might sound corny in a lot of photographers, but I really truly believe that I'm capturing a timestamp, because the evolution is changing. Some of these older folks, they're gonna go and I've taken pictures of people that have never had their pictures taken.
You have this one image. I'm just wondering, this man, and he's carrying a basket of fruit on his head, and you printed it on metal. So I know that photo, and I want to know, why do you print some of your images on metal?
Again, I think that's relays back to the vividness of the Haitian culture, the color palette in Haiti. There's nothing pastel about it. There's nothing that's that is dull. We use flame, we use forest green, we use these bright, vivid colors everywhere that you turn. And that's represented in the photography and the metal. I found that to be one of the best mediums to reproduce that vivid color that like I'm seeing. It gives you that brilliance, and that's what I was looking for when I made those pieces.
I love the works on metal that your images also come on paper, correct?
Yes, I do the photo paper, archival paper. I've done some brushed metal prints with hand laid epoxy resin, and I've done canvas prints with hand laid epoxy resin as well, which is fantastic. That's going to be my next, I think the next show I'll do. I'm going to do them all in the stretched canvas with the hand laid epoxy resin.
That sounds awesome. And those you can obviously create in larger sizes and they can really make a statement. Can you describe your aesthetic in 3 words?
Vivid, capturing, and timeless.
I love that. This is a challenge for everybody out there, but I want to talk about when you shoot in particular. How do you stay motivated to keep your photography growing and developing?
I try to stay ahead of the curve. So I try to like I really like to stay up with technology in terms of like where the cameras are going. I think that like that passion right there. But that's like really good. I've struggled. I've been in the US for 2 years and I've struggled to find the passion to shoot here the same way that I have the passion to shoot in Haiti. When you're finding it here in the States, you find that a lot of these places that you're going to go to have already been shot and overshot and reshot and shot in a million different ways. So it doesn't have the aspect of like, it's like a more of a bucket list. Like, oh, okay, the Bixie Bridge, like I'll take that one, this waterfall, boom, all right, check off the list. But it's not something that's like, oh, look at this work of art that like no one else has. So I've like segued a little bit more into more commercial stuff. I'm working on getting the drone licenses right now, and more into like the commercial aspect and keeping the passion projects for Haiti, which I'm working on a couple.
Do you want to tell us about one of those passion projects?
It's something that's in the works. It's been constantly delayed because of all these things that are happening right now, being pushed back. There are a lot of my pictures have to do with marine and the ocean, and there are some of these boat builders. The boats, the sailboats that you see in my images. These boats, there's no manual on how to build them. There's no school you go to. This is being passed down from generation to generation to generation, just like taught. There are different boat builders around different corners of Haiti. And I would like to document what each one of the boat builders and document their story and capture and preserve that time slot, because these guys are getting old and the new young generation doesn't want to do that kind of hard work.
That sounds awesome. I mean, not that they don't want to do the hard work, just the project
But
itself.
the project, yes,
It's
yes, thank you.
preserving a piece of history. It's
That's normally passed down verbally. I want to preserve it like video and image.
when are you hoping, or when do you think you'll start that?
I think I'm gonna wait for right now. There's a lot of access that's cut off to the south of Haiti. With the earthquake, you've got the situation is pretty, I would say, dire right now. So a lot of my energy is kind of focused towards like assisting and helping down there in whatever capacity that I can currently. Photography and the passion projects right now are like completely on the back burner, as this time right now that we're having in Haiti is I'm more needed elsewhere.
Yeah, it makes sense. What is the first creative project you can remember? Maybe something from high school or even before.
Well, the creative project from high school was the in the class, capture your everyday life around you. That's where my teacher came back and was like, "This is phenomenal. You haven't we hadn't This was kind of like day 2, day 3, like, here, grab the camera, go out there and make it happen." And I came back and he was like, "Did anyone ever teach you the rule of thirds?"
Is that a composition
Yeah,
rule?
it's like a way that like it's a composition rule where like you put the image in the 1/3 of the image, and that will create more of it'll create a different feel to your image, let's say.
And so you got that.
And I got that right away. And from an early point, I understood that that was something that, oh, okay, this is how you're creating nice images, to use this rule.
And you didn't, no one taught you that.
No one taught me that. But I would say the most memorable photography project endeavor I did was probably getting into underwater photography.
Oh, wow. I haven't seen any of those.
Yeah, so those are again for, I'm kind of working on those on the side, but I've got a good collection of these beautiful underwater images.
Very cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are your photos inspired by an emotional energy?
Yeah. Yeah, I do think that they're inspired by completely an emotional energy, as you can tell from our discussion here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm extremely passionate about Haiti and that imagery problem that we have, and how I can change that, and motivating, and trying to, social media has been an amazing way for me to motivate the younger generation coming underneath me to, like, hey, post positive things about your country. Like, I refuse to shoot misery. I've been approached by UNICEF's the misery shooters, where the pictures that they take have to portray a certain amount of pain and suffering because that's what makes people donate. I refuse to do that kind of work.
There's enough of that, right?
Yeah, there's enough of that, right? Like, I would get calls like, hey, Max, we've got a mission trip coming to Haiti. Do you want to go out and shoot? And these were very well paying gigs, And I said, no, this is not what I want to do. I want to take pictures and make art of Haiti.
Amazing. What is your favorite part about being a photographer?
Seeing the picture before it happens, like getting super excited. And it happens to me all the time because you see life in pictures, right? So like you go somewhere, and then as I'm like, oh wow, look at, I see that picture. And then the execution of it. And then now when you're going to get into the picture and you look at it and you're like, wow, like I cannot believe that I visualized this image in my head and now I created it and it's here and I'm looking at it.
Do you carry your camera with you everywhere you go?
Yes, I do.
Mm, fantastic. What do you hope people will get from your photos?
My ultimate goal is for you is to change people's perception, is to change how people see that country. And if each person that I can reach, that I do that, whether it's digitally or whether it's my image on a wall and somebody walks in and it's like, wow, look at this image, where is this? And people will be like, Haiti. And you're like, no, that's not Haiti, dude. Haiti's a dump pile, or whatever it is that people have as a connotation of Haiti. And you're like, no, 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 that's Haiti. And I think that I've had that happen already, and it's really nice. The legacy you'll leave back behind is like, all right, like this is one of the people that were like actively playing a role to change the perception of the country, because we talk about development, we talk about tourism, we talk about all these things are affected, right? So you talk about Haiti being the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. Well, how can we change that? It's not by grants and aid and mission work. It's going to be by tourism, and like, it's going to be by foreign investment coming down and making a hotel, making this, doing that. Again, the business aspect to it. So that way you can create an economy where the person who didn't have access to any kind of money is now, he can open a little shop. Maybe he can sell some tourist stuff. Maybe he can do a guided tour. You can create more economy and you can scale this. And I feel like the imagery is one of the first things. One of the most satisfying things as being a photographer is when I was living in Haiti. I just moved to the States 2 years ago, by the way.
Yeah, you haven't been here very long at all.
No, I have not. In Haiti, people would track me down in Cap Haitian, the town where I'm from, and they would come to me and they would be like, "Are you Max? Are you Maxim Laroche? Are you Max Laroche?" I'm like, "Yes, that's me." Are you Haiti Uncut? I'm like, "Yes, that's me." And they're like, "Dude, your images, you're the reason I'm in this city right now is because of your pictures." I'm like,
Mm,
"Oh, okay, that's a win. Thank you."
fantastic. And then, yeah, definitely. I just want to mention or interject that Max's Instagram handle is at the @ and then Haiti Uncut. So be sure to check that out. You are so inspiring to talk to. I feel equally as passionate about what I do, hopefully as equally as passionate about what I do as what you do. Anyways, this was so much fun. Thank you, Max. I so appreciate you talking with me. And listeners, be sure to check out Max's images on the Art Dimensions site, which is artdimensionsonline.com. On the homepage, you can click the upper right-hand corner. It says artists. So click the word artist and then scroll down to Max's name, click on the thumbnail, and it'll take you to his page and his glorious images. You can follow Art Dimensions on Instagram too, at Art Dimensions. So don't forget Haiti Uncut and Art Dimensions on Instagram. So is there anything else that you want to mention before we sign off?
No, I think this has been great, Whitney. I mean, thanks. I've spent a whole bunch of time talking about myself, and maybe next time I'll get to know a little bit more about you.
Oh, that's okay. Well, I had a great time and I appreciate you being here. I really do. Thank you for doing this. So to Max and everyone out there listening, take great care, have a productive week, and happy creating.